All right, so this has been bugging me. Now, it's just so funny, how people, suddenly everybody knows this same line of argument. People that didn't a few years ago, they'll find out something and they just start repeating it. Anyway, so there's this thing about the definition of socialism, and it's an old thing, and it's gotten bigger or more fine granularity with Bernie Sanders running in 2016. Now, basically with Bernie, it's been like, well, he calls himself a democratic socialist. He should really be calling himself a social democrat. And it goes back, though, further about whether communism and socialism, what the distinctions are. And most people that want to take a discussion of those subjects seriously would say, communism is where the state owns, you could say the people own, whatever, there's more than one way to arrange this, but, there's no private businesses owned by individuals. The employees or the government own all of the businesses, right? It's a public thing. You don't have a letter of ownership over the company, but if you work there, social democracy in the workplace, there's various ways, but that would be a communist side, which is why there's things like anarcho-communism, where you really technically wouldn't even have a government, but you basically would. The government then is divested into the people's self-sovereignty. So there's all these little issues. Whereas socialism is a hybrid. You would have markets, you would have private thing, but mostly there'd be lots of government-owned stuff. Now, like medicine and things like this might be run by the government, like in the UK, where they actually run the hospitals. They don't just handle an insurance with private, Okay. So that's the basic idea, is that there's some spectrum like that. And, pure capitalism or what? Everything would be private. The police, the military, Right. Now, this has never been really hammered out in public. And those people that are knowledgeable about socialism and are picking on the Bernie Sanders use of the term, as well as the people that aren't that knowledgeable but have been echoing it for whatever reason. That part's a little silly, because what they're talking about is not the philosophical definitions and arguments of social democrat versus democratic socialist. This comes from just the fact that political parties have named themselves various things. But look, the Democratic Party, they have superdelegates. That doesn't mean superdelegates are a part of democracy. Don't call yourself believing in democracy unless you have superdelegates. No, they just name their party after democracy. And it's the same thing with social democracy. There's a lot of people that have started parties in Europe mostly, but all over. Look, here's Afghanistan. Here's all the countries that have had social democratic parties. As a liberal kind of, hey, we're for social safety nets. That doesn't change what social democratic might mean, and it's similar with democratic socialists. Now, I don't know who these are other than the DSA, but, these are socialists, meaning more like, communist-style socialism. But even then, communist, like Venezuela has communist-style socialism, but not actually communist. They do have private companies, so then it's officially, The United States has never sorted out what all these terms mean, to the point of, like, no, that we call that a motorcycle. That has four wheels. That's called a car. You're just mistaken calling that car a motorcycle. It's not well defined like that. And I take Harry Truman's approach, because when we had in the United States Social Security, the Republicans called it socialist. Medicare called it socialist. They call these things socialists, and that's what we've been fighting over. And now there's conservatives that are like, Denmark isn't socialist, that's a mixed economy with a strong safety net. Well, but you've been calling that shit socialism. So we're just going to go with, because all of this political esoterica that is controversial among people that discuss these kinds of political terms has fucking shit all to do with regular democratic politics where the word is whatever it means in the wild. It doesn't matter. Utilitarianism is originally the name for a philosophical school of thought, but the regular people use it to mean things that are useful, judging things based by their useful. Well, the philosophical school was talking about judging social policy by satisfaction or happiness and being able to take sums of that. Well, the word utilitarian means what people use it to mean now. And it can mean both, right? There's more than one definition in the dictionary. But here's a definition that I'm using for socialism, right? I've just given in. If Social Security is socialism, and Medicare is socialism, and public roads then is socialism, then this definition is what I'm going with. This is Harry S. Truman. Socialism is a scare word they've hurled at every advance the people have made in the last 20 years. This was in 52. So let's say the last 60 years. Socialism is what they called public power. Socialism is what they called Social Security. Socialism is what they called farm price supports. Socialism is what they called bank deposit insurance. Socialism is what they called the growth of free and independent labor organizations. Socialism is their name for almost anything that helps all the people. And I'm going with that definition of socialism, and specifically the helps all the people thing. Social Security, it's not means tested. The rich get it too. Right? It caps out. How much you have to pay into it caps out, and how much you get back caps out. When in Alaska, everybody gets the dividend for the oil. You know, most people know, I think, that Alaska actually pays money to Alaskan citizens for their dividend on owning the oil that is leased to oil companies, the oil land, however you want to put it. That's not means tested. If everybody gets it, like public access to roads, you know, then yeah, that's what I'm going to call socialism. That's a social program. I will still make a distinction between that and welfare, which also are like social programs. You can make an argument because it's available to everybody if you're poor, but it's different. I don't want the middle class cut out of something. Poor people get medical care in the United States. Middle class, fuck you. You know, poor people, free college. Right? I want to, and it's going to save money too, because if we just give people free state university, then we're going to stop having to give loans to people that are going to Yale. You want to go to Yale, you got to figure out a way, you know, get a private grant of some sort. And it'll drive down the cost of even private universities, because one reason it's inflated so much is we've given free money. I mean, I missed out on that. There was no loans during the 80s when I'm going to college, and then he just made it real easy, so everybody's got all this fucking debt. That's not socialism. Putting people in debt and saying everybody could go to college as long as you go into a bunch of debt and you get a degree that you will never be able to pay it back. That's fine. That's not socialism. That's a scam. Just providing roads and you can go on. It's not like free if you're poor enough. No, those are social programs. That's what we're going to be using the word socialism to mean from now on.